There is no other thrill like the thrill of the drop. Most surfers in the world get that thrill from waves that span 3 to 8 feet. But there's a certain breed of adrenaline junkies out there. Daredevils, those who are fearless and daring and seek out the giant waves. These monsters that God has created. These waves can reach up to heights of 80 feet. These types of waves can only be generated from specific locations due to geological factors. Today, I'm going to explore what generates massive waves from some of the most famous spots in the world. But first, we're going to talk about the basic science behind waves. Waves are basically moving energy, which comes from the friction of wind passing over the water. All waves break differently because of what lies beneath as it approaches the shore. For example, at my home beach here in California, the waves break a certain way because it is sent over an underlying rock formation. Giant waves are generated due to a specific combination of these factors, whether it is the way the seafloor can slope or the shallowness of the reef. As I stated earlier, wind plays an important role in this as well. It causes certain spots to break big or small, depending on how it affects the water and how it is sending the water over whatever is lying beneath. I have 2 surfboards here behind me. The white one is 5 feet 5 inches. The green one is 5 feet 7 inches. These are called shortboards, which are used to maneuver through smaller waves. Like I said, waves that can span 3 to 8 feet. To maneuver through a wave that spans anywhere from 20 to 80 feet, you would need a longboard, also sometimes referred to as a gun. These can be anywhere from 6 feet to 10 feet. The added length and thickness helps surfers have more stability and in return helps them be safer as they're traveling down these long faces or deep barrels. The first wave we're going to talk about is Chopo Tahiti. It is known as the heaviest wave in the world because it generates the most amount of water. The reason Chopo breaks so heavily and generates enough energy to cause waves that can regularly reach heights up to 30 feet is because of the extremely shallow reef that lies underneath. This reef is so shallow that surfers who are sitting on their boards can brush their toes against it. It measures about 3 or 4 feet below the surface. The massive energy of Chopo meeting this shallow ocean reef is known as a surging wave, which is also why if you look at Chopo, it has no ripples. Instead, it seems as if the ocean is rising up and performing this huge wave. Next, we're going to talk about the reef mechanics of this wave. Tahiti is a group of islands formed by volcanoes, which helps generate shallow coral reefs, much like Hawaii. The reef goes vertically, which would normally cause choppy and uneven waves because the water would keep getting sent over the top of the reef. But if you know the reputation of Chopo, you know it generates beautifully formed and clean waves. This is because of the desalination effect of fresh rainwater hitting the shallow reef. This makes channels in which the water gets sucked back out into the ocean. This also causes the thickness of the wave. Also, because of these channels, Chopo breaks in a specific spot every single time. Something that's common knowledge to those who live by normal beaches, say here in California, is that when the waves grow bigger, they will break farther out. At the beach I normally go to, the waves break right onto the shore when they are less than 2 feet. When they are about 5 feet, they start breaking 15 yards or so out. When they reach 8 and over, they'll be 25 to 30 yards away from the shore. This does not happen at Chopo. Whether it is a 2-foot day, an 8-foot day, 30-foot day, the waves will be in the exact same spot, which is over that reef. While Chopo is not known as the most dangerous wave in the world, it is still in the top 10. Because the reef is so shallow, when a surfer falls off their board or wipes out, they will be thrown against the reef by the water. If a surfer falls while they are surfing, they will usually get away with minor scratches. But if they fall as they are dropping in, this results in them getting sent over the top of the wave and getting their bodies slammed into the reef, which causes detrimental injuries. I'm going to show you a video of Chopo taken from the World Surf League's contest that was held there earlier this year. You can see where the water is getting sucked back out over the reef and being sent over the top, as explained to us by surfer and biologist Michael Fasson. And you can see how shallow the reef is. This is pro surfer Julian Wilson taking off on a wave in his heat against world champion John Florence. You can see where he gets stuck in a classic Chopo barrel but doesn't quite make it out, meaning his body is likely hitting that shallow reef. As I said earlier, Hawaii is also a group of islands formed by volcanoes, which produces the same shallow reefs as Tahiti. These Hawaiian reefs form beautiful waves all throughout the islands, with the most famous being Pipeline on the north shore of Oahu. Pipeline has 3 nearshore reefs and a number of outer ones. The first reef breaks 75 yards away from the sand and is the classic pipeline we all see in the media. The second reef breaks when the waves get 12 to 18 feet, which is a little bit farther back than the first reef. The third reef breaks when it's 25 feet and over, but it isn't very clean and sends massive bouts of white water through the first and second reefs, as explained to us by Sean Collins, surfer and writer for Surfline. This amount of white water makes for a very unmanageable surf throughout the whole beach. Though Pipeline and Chopo work in similar ways in regard to the reef, the break of the waves are completely different. Pipeline has a factor called backdoor, which is the right, as opposed to the traditional left barrel. A surfer can option to take the right if the northwestern wind swell can open up backdoor. Also, the main difference is faces. So there's no rainwater causing the channels that create that same thickness at Chopo, which means Pipeline will typically have a longer face and not as thick of a wave. A longer face just means the longer drop down, and it makes it appear to be a bigger wave. Though this regard of the reef is different, the reefs are still very similar and still have the same amount of danger. The Pipeline reef, the first reef goes about 5 feet deep, which poses the same exact danger as Chopo, as in when a surfer wipes out, their body could get slammed against the reef and cause many injuries, which we've seen all too often here at Pipeline. Now that we've just finished discussing Pipeline, which is arguably the most famous wave in the world, we're going to be shifting gears to a small local spot called Cortez Bank. Cortez Bank is one of the small islands scattered around the coast here in Southern California, about 100 miles west of San Diego. Unlike Pipeline and Chopo, Cortez Bank is an open ocean break, meaning it breaks far beyond the coast, basically in the middle of the ocean. According to Surfline, underwater mountain formations are what help form this huge break. The largest mountain peak reaches 6 feet from the water, which means when the waves are being formed, they go from traveling and developing thousands of feet under the surface to sharply being compacted and coming up 6 feet below, which sends a huge surge of energy up. The wind conditions have to be stable as well to surf the spot. This means the weather has to be working in your favor to form clean and relatively safe conditions. For example, if the Santa Ana winds are working against you, you could ride down the face of a 50-foot wave, only to have a 20-foot wave coming at you from the opposite direction. I'm going to show you a video created by Surfline that helps show you the underwater mountain range and the way it slopes up. You can see where this wave is going to break right over this semi-shallow underwater mountain range. And here's where it slopes up from thousands of feet underwater and hits that really shallow range. Cortez Bank and other open ocean breaks like Shipsterns Bluff face their own dangers that can be far graver than a shallow reef. One example would be great white sharks. Great white sharks don't tend to congregate in small little shallow reef breaks like Tahiti or Pipeline. They tend to congregate in the middle of the open ocean, especially in these frigid California waters. Another, and arguably the biggest danger, would be drowning. If you're not lucky enough to have your body slammed into the underwater mountain range formation that's forming these waves, then you're going to be sucked out into the open ocean, with thousands of feet to go before you hit the bottom of the ocean. Which means, if you get stuck, you don't know which way is up, you don't know which way is down, and odds are you are likely to drown to death in that situation. I've talked about the dangers of waves like these. So the question at hand here is why? Why go after these massive and furious beasts when you could surf normal waves? Because there is no thrill like the thrill of taming the beast, sliding down a massive drop, and not just surviving, but thriving in that moment. The ocean is a colossal force, and it is our human nature to try to vanquish it.